All right, it's that time again. Welcome to Giant Africa, where we talk about the challenges facing Africa political and economic development. Here you get a weekly dose of Africa political and economic issues. For this week, we are focusing on Africa and its history of corrupt political leaders. Africa and its history of corrupt political leaders. From north to south, west to east, the common theme in Africa is the doggedness of their leaders not to surrender power. They hold on to it as a glue holds two objects together, even in the face of glaring inefficiencies. The late Robert Mugabe led the way and was probably followed by Paul Biya. Biya, if I'm not mistaken, is the longest serving political leader right now in the continent, by the way. Robert Mugabe, a trained teacher born in 1924, was a nationalist who did a lot to secure his country, Zimbabwe's independence in 1980. His sacrifice to the cause could not be questioned as he was a political prisoner for 11 years during the struggle for independence. His case was that of a brilliant man who earned graduate degrees while in prison, positioning himself to achieve freedom for his people. As with a host of leaders in Africa, achieving victory for freedom soon degenerated into the beginning of a lifetime hoard of power. In years before the independence, Mugabe adopted Marxist and Maoist views, but he maintained good relations with the West, who donated cash towards his struggle. He even convinced the white farmers to stay after the country's independence. The cooperation soon went sour when he systematically approved the invasions of white farms. He started his journey by first finding a way to create a de facto one party state. Through that, he got himself re-elected twice in the 1990s. He rode on the sentiments and nationalist euphoria to win a widely opposed referendum seeking to expand the power of his presidency to seize white-owned lands. The invasion and violence against white-owned farms led to the demise of commercial farming in Zimbabwe, triggering unfathomable years of hyperinflation and food shortages. Despite the hardship experienced by his people, the priority for Mugabe was to hold on to power. He often arrested, imprisoned, and tortured members of his inclusive government. Corruption thrived in the country under his reign. Under his watch, Zimbabwe ranked 163rd out of 176 countries deemed corrupt by Amnesty International. The public sector was the most corrupt in the country. Furthermore, there was a systematic underselling of diamonds in the country, a fact confirmed by the then country's finance minister, Tendai Biti. About $1 billion in diamond related revenue owed to the National Treasury was unaccounted. The so-called anti-corruption efforts of the administration of Mugabe were tame at best. How about Biya? Biya is no different to Mugabe. For Biya of Cameroon is now far away in the western part of the continent as a partner in monopoly of power. As the late Mugabe, Biya has a collection of graduate degrees. He has won elections in a canter, albeit as professed by some, fraudulently. He rose through the ranks by serving in different cabinet positions to become the prime minister in 1975 and took over the presidency from Hamadu Ahijo in 1982. Ahijo became the leader of the controlling political party, the Cameroon National Union. Before Biya ascended to the presidency, it used to be that party leader controlled the government in Cameroon. Still, he systematically destroyed that structure by replacing all the cronies of Ahijo with his men, which led to the falling out between the two. Ahijo had to flee the country as a result. Despite Biya's effort to improve the economy, his government is still one of the most corrupt in Africa. Bribery is rampant in the public sector. The president is estimated to be worth at least $75 million, with mansions in Cameroon and abroad. Like African leaders, Biya has mastered the divide and rule tactics by benefiting some people with his largesse while others live in poverty. Those who have benefited from him constantly praise him as the best to have happened to the country, but some still find the courage to criticize him. Alimna Mbaga of the Social Democratic Front summed up the economic situation best when he commented that Cameroon had 7% economic growth in 1982 when Paul Biya became president, and that the country was on a path of becoming an emerging economy like Brazil, China, Korea, and Japan. But today, the economic growth rate has dropped to less than 3%. There's no democracy, no freedom of expression. There are falling moral standards and poor justice systems, according to Alimna Mbaga. To the likes of Biya and the late Mugabe, the blame for the dwindling economy should be on something else. Mugabe was constantly blaming the West for his country's travails. That has been the common theme of corrupt African leaders, shifting blames while oppressing their people. The reality is that the so-called leaders are exploiting their people. They take advantage of the low literacy level prevalent in Africa to further deepen their respective countries' regression and quagmire of poverty. So, what's the solution? The solution lies in strengthening institutions, which is far-fetched for now, as the corrupt leaders have found ways to weaken those institutions and shut out the ability to carry out meaningful reforms. It might take decades for any meaningful solution to happen. The overwhelming majority of the people need to be educated and enlightened. Their values need reorientation, and they must be ready to partake in the polity. Hopefully, with concerted pressure from the people, the right leaders will be at the helm of affairs. All right, guys, there goes the conclusion of this week's dose of the challenges facing Africa's political and economic development and how the continent is dealing with those challenges. Be sure to tune in next time. Take good care, guys.